But the size, when I came to boxing gym and my coach told me that one of the rules it's like respect the weight classes. You should respect weight classes. But he has a very good skills. He's one of my favorite fighters, active fighters.
That's not easy for Crawford. I mean, it's Canelo has the big advantage, but Crawford needs to manage well his body, his speed, and his power, because he's moving up to another level of weight.
I asked this because
After training with Crawford, Bivol has revealed Crawford's strategy that will put Canelo to sleep. The same Canelo Alvarez, who once appeared indestructible at 168 pounds, is now facing a version of Terence Crawford, shaped by the man who already broke him. Bivol has made it clear that the secret isn't just power, it's adaptation. Crawford isn't walking into this clash hoping to outmuscle Canelo. He's preparing to take the energy Canelo brings at 168 and flip it on him.
I feel I got the speed over Canelo. I got the reach over him. He might got the size, the power. I got the better skills, boxing skills.
Would it be more of a cat and mouse? The reality is Canelo does put people out, from Kirkland to Amir Khan to just...
According to Bivol, it all starts with mental readiness. He warned that without the right psychological conditioning, fighters become soft under pressure. That wasn't just general advice, it was a shot at how Canelo has been winning lately by banking on his opponents folding mentally. But Crawford doesn't fold. In fact, he thrives in chaos. That's why Bivol is convinced that with the right training, Crawford will not only absorb Canelo's power, but find moments to inflict mental exhaustion on him through unpredictability and pace changes.
I'm not going in there looking to knock Canelo out. Could it happen? Yes, absolutely. When I look at Canelo, he's a smaller, bigger guy moving up in divisions. Being that these big guys is slower, so they might catch him with something, but he might see it at the last moment.
Canelo's recent performances tell their own story. He didn't dominate Charlo with overwhelming skill. He dominated because Charlo looked like a fighter who didn't belong in the ring with him. Callum Smith had a similar fate. Bivol isn't impressed. He sees those wins as signs of weakness in the division, not strength in Canelo. He's saying Crawford's different because Crawford has never mentally collapsed in a fight. When Bivol calls Canelo inconsistent, he's questioning the very myth of Canelo's greatness. And now he's arming Crawford with the knowledge of how to dismantle that myth again.
On the streets, you and Canelo, what would it look like?
Come on, man. Y'all know what I do. I ain't got to talk about it. On the streets, I'm me against anybody. I ain't never gonna say another man gonna whoop me. So, that's your answer right there.
I guess in Guadalajara, you think it'd be a little different on the streets if Terence came to town?
I think every city, every place is different, no? It's different. But we're not talking about the streets. We're talking about boxing.
Crawford, for his part, has embraced the idea of being an underdog. That might be the most dangerous part for Canelo. Crawford isn't pretending he's naturally big enough for the division. He's not pretending Canelo hasn't faced bigger hitters. What he is saying, though, is that power is timing. He's not trying to walk Canelo down like Bivol. He's trying to bait him, frustrate him, and then hurt him. Crawford's history shows he adapts mid-fight. He doesn't throw volume blindly. He watches, he sets traps, and then he detonates them. Against Canelo, that approach might matter more than size or strength. And with Bivol in his corner, Crawford isn't just going off instinct. He's getting specific tactics from the last man to make Canelo look ordinary.
The only running that I'm gonna be doing is running upside his head, and I can assure you that. Facts. And he got a big head too.
Crawford's been clear. He knows he'll take some shots. He knows Canelo won't crumble with the first clean hit, but Crawford isn't planning to knock him cold with one punch. He's planning to break him down. When Crawford said, "He's got to take my punches too," it wasn't an empty threat. It was a reminder that Canelo is fighting someone who doesn't fear getting hit, someone who believes he hits just as hard when it counts. Crawford may not be a known knockout artist at higher weights, but he's precise, and he's cruel in his finishing. What he lacks in raw physicality, he makes up for in timing and spite. Canelo's faced punchers, but he hasn't faced a technician with mean intentions in years.
If the ring is standard size, I think Bud beats his ass all around the ring for 12 rounds. If Canelo want to come forward and get the whooping, that's what he gonna get. But that's the thing. In that last Skull fight, he didn't want to take the fight to Skull. So if Canelo don't come to fight, I don't want to see Crawford stand in the middle of the ring and take that type of risk. Because Crawford, he talk about retirement, but he can still go on after this. So he ain't got to take that punishment. He can run it back with him. I don't want Crawford forced into a dog fight with Canelo. No, I think he gonna whoop his ass off 12 rounds.
Crawford's punch selection might actually be more dangerous than raw power. Bivol didn't beat Canelo by battering him. He beat him by never letting him breathe. He landed clean, sharp scoring shots and then circled away. Crawford's style might be even more frustrating because he switches stances and lures fighters into bad decisions. If he follows Bivol's advice and remains mentally locked in, Canelo might end up looking flat again. That alone could shift the scorecards. But Crawford is also willing to gamble late. If Canelo is bruised, tired, or frustrated by the 9th or 10th round, Crawford won't coast. He'll push. He'll test that body, look for swelling, and exploit damage the way he always does.
If you beat Terence Crawford in this fight, or is it on the line the greatest champion in the history of Mexico? Is that on the line in this fight?
I don't know. Let's see when I retire where I'm gonna be in the list, but for sure I will beat Terence Crawford. No matter.
There's another layer of controversy surrounding Crawford's training schedule. His admission that he wasn't training hard early on raised eyebrows. He told Tom Brady he wasn't even really training. On the surface, it sounded reckless. But Crawford's rationale is calculated. He's saving his peak for fight night. In an era where fighters glorify endless grind and sleepless nights in the gym, Crawford is opting for efficiency. That's a bold move, especially against a physically demanding opponent like Canelo. But overtraining ruins careers. Crawford's treating the camp like a marathon, not a sprint. He's conserving the psychological fire for when it's needed most.
What do you think the KO bonus is? Because it's like, how much money is going to entice Crawford to take this chance?
I don't think any money is going to entice Crawford to take this chance. I think Crawford's going to stick to a game plan and just beat him. Canelo, I think, has to win by knockout anyway. I think Crawford doesn't care whether he wins by knockout or decision. Question is, can Crawford get a decision? At this point, he probably can. You know, there's nobody really. I think Canelo's popularity is kind of waning anyway. So, I mean, I don't think Crawford's going to put himself out there just to get a KO bonus. I think Crawford's going to stick to a game plan. He's very, very disciplined. It's in his demeanor to stay disciplined and be disciplined. I think that's what the way he's going to fight.
The problem is that critics will say this is arrogance. They'll call it disrespectful to Canelo. They'll claim Crawford doesn't understand what 168 pounds really means until he's in there with a monster. But Crawford's calm isn't rooted in arrogance. It's rooted in knowing exactly who he is. This isn't a young challenger begging for validation. This is a 41-0 fighter who's made a habit out of proving doubters wrong. His confidence comes from knowing he's always delivered when the lights are brightest. That's why he isn't asking for catch weight clauses. He isn't asking for protection, no rehydration limits, no rematch clauses. He wants Canelo at full strength, not just to beat him, but to erase the excuses.
I think Crawford is special. I know he hasn't fought the resume everyone wants, but you have that or you don't have that ingredient. I think he has it. Canelo's really good. He's tremendous. But could he be a tiny bit overrated? The greatness is within Crawford. It's in his desire, it's in his mind, it's in his makeup, where he came from. I know he's moving.
Some fans are reading this as mind games. By being so relaxed, Crawford might be trying to make Canelo second-guess his own urgency. If Crawford's not worried, why should Canelo be? But that also carries a risk. If Crawford comes in undertrained, thinking Bivol's blueprint is enough, he might get a rude awakening. That's what makes this fight more than just a battle of skills. It's a test of ego versus calculation. Bivol believes in Crawford, but he also warned that the mental side is key. If Crawford slips even slightly in focus, Canelo can capitalize. Canelo's not declining physically, he's just being challenged differently now.
Later, and he still got that kind of steam, but you know, there's so many components that make a champion. There's so many components that make a great, a legend. It's just so much to go into. It's a conversation that lasts an hour easily when we talk about all of the components that Terence Crawford has, all of the components that Canelo has, and how we find how they even.
After weeks of silence, Oscar De La Hoya finally went public with exactly what many boxing fans were already thinking, but didn't dare say. According to him, the promotion for Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford has been a disaster. The lack of tension, the forced camaraderie, and the photo of both fighters dining together with Turki Alalshik was all it took for De La Hoya to accuse the whole event of being sanitized, soft, and frankly, boring. His comparison was blunt. Could anyone imagine Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier breaking bread before their fights? Could you picture Mike Tyson and Mitch Green having a quiet meal before throwing hands in the street? De La Hoya's rant wasn't about nostalgia. It was about the essence of boxing promotion. He believes the sport needs friction to sell, not a dinner party.
Are you still favoring Crawford in the fight, or has your opinion changed?
I mean, I've always favoured Canelo in the fight.
Well, I've heard that you want Canelo to win, but you
of
feel
course,
big.
Yeah, I like Terence. I've worked a lot with Canelo, and I think just because of what I saw in Riyadh and because of he's getting on.
His frustration didn't stop there. He criticized Crawford directly, suggesting that if he really wanted to get under Canelo's skin, all he had to do was bring up the tainted meat scandal. It was an open shot De La Hoya thinks Crawford missed. Instead of building heat, they were exchanging smiles. And then there's Dana White. De La Hoya mocked White's deflection when asked whether he would attend this fight or a UFC card scheduled on the same day. Dana chose insults over answers, calling De La Hoya a douchebag, which Oscar returned with a jab about affliction shirts. This feud isn't new, but De La Hoya's use of it to expose the promotional gaps in Canelo versus Crawford struck a chord. The fight might be a technical masterpiece, but to De La Hoya, it's missing the emotional stakes.
Now, what the media is reporting, and it's circulating, is that Canelo Crawford is the biggest fight of the decade. I mean, to a purist and a fighter, it's laughable. Because you have Crawford jumping up 2 weight classes to fight Canelo, who's a natural light heavyweight. Crawford, who couldn't push back Madrimov. Life and
Tim Bradley took the conversation in a different direction. His issue wasn't the dinner photo or the lack of drama. He zeroed in on Terence Crawford's motivation. According to Bradley, this fight is about more than money. It's about respect, he argues. Crawford moved up to 168 because boxing fans refused to give him credit for beating Errol Spence Jr. and Sean Porter. In Bradley's view, Spence was damaged goods after his car accident, and Porter was past his prime. Crawford's timing may have been perfect for stacking wins, but it worked against him when it came to legacy. So now he's doing something ridiculous. He's jumping from welterweight to super middleweight without a tune-up. No catch weight, no rehydration clause, just straight into the deep end. Bradley says Crawford's refusing to give anyone a chance to build excuses. If he beats Canelo, he wants it to be as clean as possible.
If Canelo couldn't knock out Charlo, or you really think that he's gonna knock out Crawford? I would pick Terence Crawford to beat a Canelo Alvarez, even at 168. Everybody can call me crazy and whatever you want to say. I get it. Y'all didn't believe me when I told you about Spence, but trust me, Crawford will figure out a way. I know a secret y'all don't know, and I ain't gonna tell you why I would pick Terence Crawford, but it's part of the secret is the reason why I'm picking him to win the fight.
Crawford himself has acknowledged the risk. He knows that even if he wins on September 13th, people will say Canelo was washed, that he wasn't the same guy who beat Gennady Golovkin years ago, that Crawford caught him at the right time. It's the same thing they did after the Spence fight. Crawford dominated that fight from start to finish, but instead of praise, he got caveats. Fans pointed to Spence's wreck, his inactivity, his sluggishness. Crawford predicts the same thing is coming again. Beat Canelo and watch people scramble to explain it away.
I've always said this is going to be a massive fight. Regardless of what the haters want to say or whatnot, this was going to be massive. But I feel like yesterday, after that press conference, I feel like now we universally agree that this is a mega fight. That Canelo versus Bud Crawford is going to be one of the biggest fights of this decade. This is not just a fight that boxing fans will be excited for. This has now become a fight that the boxing fans and the casual fans and
He's probably right. Canelo's performance against William Skull didn't help. He looked slower. His movement wasn't sharp. He threw single punches instead of combinations. His timing looked off. The decline may not be steep, but it's visible. But it's not like Crawford is in his physical prime either. He didn't look particularly sharp last August against Israel Madrimov. There was hesitation. There was rust. His output was lower than expected. That fight didn't scream pound for pound #1. So if both fighters are showing signs of aging, does the win even mean anything to fans anymore?
What's the highest you could fight at, realistically?
I would say 154, realistic. 154. You know,
So
them boys get big up there. Them boys get big up there. And I'm not a person to, you know, toot my own horn too loud to be able to say, oh, well, I can beat the world. You know, I understand their...
Crawford doesn't seem to care. He's been vocal that people will always find something. If it's not Spence's accident, it'll be Canelo's age. If it's not Canelo's age, it'll be the weight difference. Crawford says it doesn't matter what he does. The media and fans will always move the goalposts. His goal isn't to satisfy critics, it's to win fights and collect checks. And those checks are massive. Reports suggest he'll make at least $50 million for the Netflix broadcast of the Canelo fight. That's 5 times what he made for Madrimov, and the Saudis are writing those checks. If Turki Al-Sheikh keeps paying, Crawford might not go anywhere.
Let me tell you what I think should be gone. The notion that Terence Bud Crawford should move up 3 weight classes, 21 pounds, to fight Canelo Alvarez. He's entirely too small. Jamel Charlo already proved that.
But there's a catch. If Crawford wins but the fight flops, or if he looks dull, Al-Sheikh might stop caring. The money will disappear. Crawford is smart enough to know that. He knows one sleepy fight against a fading legend isn't enough to build a career off of. To keep the Saudis interested, he'll need to fight names that matter. And that's where it gets dangerous. Crawford can only cash in for so long on guys like Israel Madrimov or Edgar Berlanga. Eventually, he'll need to face David Benavidez, Dmitry Bivol, or Artur Beterbiev. That's a different conversation. Crawford's slick, but those men are younger, bigger, and meaner. There's no guarantee Crawford beats any of them.
What happens when he takes a shot from Canelo? One of those uppercuts from Mejia or those...
He could get dropped, or he feels it enough to be like, fuck this, I'm boxing. And goes on the bicycle and turns southpaw for the rest of the night. And I wouldn't blame him either. Fuck it, you're gonna go in there and collect a fucking paycheck at that point.
Right.
You're not gonna go get hurt.
Right.
What good is it to get fucking 20, 30 million if you are fucking hurt physically, end up in the hospital and hurt just physically, life-changing, you don't want that shit.
Bradley made a good point about this as well. He said if Crawford keeps winning, people will eventually demand the Benavidez fight or Bivol or Beterbiev. If he keeps getting paid, he'll have to earn it against killers. The easy checks only last so long. At some point, the Saudi backers are going to ask for blood. And if Crawford declines, if he retires early, people will say he ducked. If he fights and loses, people will say he was never that good. It's a no-win situation unless he wins everything. And even then, there's no guarantee he gets his flowers.
Canelo and Bud. Who you like in this fight?
Canelo.
Why? Because Bud had to move up 3 classes?
Yes. And in the history of boxing, I've never seen anybody move up 2 classes and be successful.
Well, Roy did.
I mean, but not in one jump, not in one leap.
Right, you're right.
It was a here,
right.
Light, heavyweight, fight a few fights, right. Okay, heavyweight. We talking about he just fought 147 one fight ago.
Right.
And then you gonna fight at 168?
Yeah. Did he fight his last fight at 54?
When asked if he's thinking about retirement after this fight, Crawford didn't commit. He said it depends. He didn't rule out sticking around if the money is right. That's the real motivation. Not legacy, not belts, not the mythical 50-0 Mayweather record. Crawford isn't chasing numbers. He's chasing paydays. He said it plainly. He's not going to fight every 6 months to catch Floyd. He's not even interested. He'll fight once a year if the deal is right. That's the business model now. Show up, cash in, and vanish until next year.
I'm going with Terence Crawford. Big weight jump, a dangerous fight, but somebody's got to prove to me that they can break Terence Crawford's will and that he can't figure it out against you. It ain't no disrespect toward Canelo, but I've said this the last couple of years. I'm not betting against Terence Crawford against nobody right now. You got to show me that you can beat him.
The problem with that model is that it only works if the fights matter. Crawford can't keep showing up for glorified exhibitions. He can't keep fighting guys on the wrong side of 35. Eventually, fans and media will turn. That's the risk he's running. He can beat Canelo and still lose momentum. He can win on points and still lose to the public. Because beating a slow version of Canelo won't move the needle the way Crawford wants. Not unless it's dominant, not unless it's punishing. He needs blood, not a chess match.
Listen, I called Canelo out said, he the last great fighter amongst the era that surpassed us. You know, the Floyd, the Pacquiao, the De La Hoya. We both came up in that era, and he was right there with those fighters, and he got the chance to fight the Miguel Cottos, the Floyd Mayweathers, and you know, the Kovalevs and Triple G's, and I wasn't able to get those mega fights, you know, so this is my mega fight, this is my moment.
That's why De La Hoya's rant matters. He's not wrong. A big fight needs energy. The dinner photo was a mistake. It set the tone. It made the fight feel safe, predictable, corporate. Crawford might win, but the buzz will fade if the fans aren't emotionally invested. There's no tension, no danger, just two men getting paid. That's what De La Hoya hates. That's why he called it ridiculous. Boxing isn't golf. You don't sell fights by showing sportsmanship. You sell them with venom. This fight doesn't have it. Crawford's calm and calculated. Canelo is reserved and disinterested. There's no heat, no spark, just millions of dollars changing hands. But what do you think? Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more updates. See you in the next one.